your protection. And we hope that the two of you will grow stronger together as one.
I've just finished playing The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. This is the second Zelda game that I've ever played besides Breath of the Wild, making me not much of an expert in the Zelda franchise, but I have my foot in the door, and I'm excited to try out eventually Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, Ocarina, Majora, and of course, Skyward Sword. So I am so excited today to talk to you guys about my first thoughts and premonitions. I spent about 2 months of my time playing this game, and it was a lot of fun, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. So let's talk about the game. Tears of the Kingdom is the sequel to Breath of the Wild, and it is by far one of the most demanding games in the sense that a lot of people who love Breath of the Wild were afraid that Tears of the Kingdom would not be able to match up to the greatness that Breath of the Wild was, and I would have to readily agree with that. Nevertheless, popping in the game, I was thoroughly shocked and surprised within the first 2 or 3 hours at how Tears of the Kingdom vastly improved upon some of the mechanics and gameplay that Breath of the Wild had created. One of the first ones I would have to say would have to be the shrines. And I'm pretty sure most people have said this, Tears of the Kingdom shrines are far more interesting than Breath of the Wild's. Going back to Breath of the Wild, I realized that the shrines felt more grindy, more like just stuff you have to do in order to get the things you need for heart containers or stamina blocks. But then you play Tears of the Kingdom and it's just fun because the puzzles are more interesting. There's more ways of beating the shrines. There's not one certain way to beat them. And so they make that so much more interesting than Breath of the Wild shrines. Next up would have to be the story. And for me, story is one of the most important elements of any video game. Even fighting games. As you know from my Tekken video, I love story and lore from video games. And so what about Tears of the Kingdom? Well, Breath of the Wild had a fantastic story, and one of the weaker side was the villain, Calamity Ganon. And so it was more of a beast of nature, which I guess in its own right is a terrifying foe. But I like how in this sequel, it was actually Ganondorf, the actual big bad from most of the mainline series, especially Ocarina of Time. So this was very exciting, and I thoroughly enjoyed the combat. I think I really enjoy the final fight with Ganon, how he basically has a lot of the same movesets that Link has, so it feels like you're fighting another version of you who's bigger, taller, stronger, more powerful, which is definitely intimidating to be sure. With the story, I would also say the world building in this game is so good. I love games that build upon each other, how you get introduced to this new world in Breath of the Wild. And in Tears of the Kingdom, you're allowed to see how this world has changed and transformed within the course between the last game and this game, which I find to be extremely fun. If you've ever played the Jak and Daxter trilogy from Sony PlayStation, then you know what this is like, especially between Jak 2 and Jak 3. It has a very similar vibe, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I wish more games would do that because it's so fun returning to these places that you've been to so long and seeing all the little differences and stuff. And I find that to be extremely fascinating. And I could sink and invest so many hours of my time just finding all the little eccentricities. So I really enjoy that. Now, lastly, enjoyment. Now, I feel like the vast majority of people who are very critical about gameplay and stuff, and of course, all they care about is high definition graphics and how much is the frame rate. And I find that to be extremely annoying. For me, I was a huge advocate for frame rates and how high def certain games are. And then I fell off of gaming because I didn't care anymore. And finally, I've started getting back into it, and I said, I don't care about HD anymore. Like, what, I'm not going to go back to play a PS1 game or a Dreamcast game because of the fact that the graphics aren't as good as they are nowadays? No, I want to play a game that's fun. I just want to sit down, put something in, and just have a good time with it. And does Tears of the Kingdom do that? Absolutely. And I think that it is extremely fun. One of my favorite pieces of armor is the mythical armor, I believe it is called, or the mystic armor. It is so freaking cool. It took forever to get the bauble gems, but it is so cool looking. I love the samurai aesthetic. I love the headpiece. Look at the long white hair. It just looks so cool. And definitely by far my favorite looking armor in the entire game. And I spent many an hour trying to grind to get that armor set. And when I finally got it, it was worth it. Now, what about the additions to the map? Of course, we got the Sky Islands and the depths. Honestly, you will not spend much time in the Sky Islands. You will mostly be spending time in the depths. And I gotta say, the depths were creepy. The depths were very, very creepy. And I actually prefer going to the depths to find the light seeds, because if you know, the light seeds will signal where a shrine is on the surface. So it's so much easier just to find the light seeds because of the darkness, and then you see it glowing in the distance. It's easier just to get those and then go up to the surface and find the shrines. Sometimes shrines are in caves, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. But anyways, I thoroughly enjoyed the depths, which takes me to my last point. What about a sequel? What would I want next in the Zelda franchise? Well, there are multiple camps. There are some people who say that they want something completely different. Let this be a duology, let's move on, something new and fresh from Zelda. There are some people who say, how about we just get like a 3D Zelda title? Or not a 3D, but like a top-down Zelda title, similar to the new HD port of Link's Awakening. And then there's people, while they do that, also remaster and port over Twilight Princess and Wind Waker to the Switch. And then there's a lot of people who say just wait for the Switch 2 or whatever's to come out after the Switch. And then there's a lot of people who are like, I don't care what you do. I feel like I'm a mixture of all of those. It would be fun for them to make another top-down Zelda game, definitely, even if it's a remaster. I would love for them to do HD collection, remaster, reports, or whatever you want to call it, of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker over to the Switch. I would love that because I would be buying it day one. But I also would love a sequel to this game, but that would be it. If it could be a trilogy and then move on to something new, I would love that because I'm invested in these characters, especially Zelda and Link's relationship. And we have only gotten a couple teases of that relationship within the game, but we've never really seen it unfold in the real world. So I would really like to focus more on that relationship. And I know typically they don't. I've heard Skyward Sword kind of does a little bit more than most of the games, and I would really love it if they made a third game for this trilogy to really delve into that. Mechanics. Okay, what mechanics? Well, I heard a YouTuber say that he believes that Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are remakes remakes of the first Legend of Zelda game and Legend of Zelda 2. And he had a good convincing case based on the story and the things that you do in those games. And he said, well, if there's a third game, then it would have to be a link between worlds. And the game mechanic would be you shifting between the hero of ancient times, which is a armor set that you get in the game for completing all the shrines, I believe. And you switching between current Hyrule and old Hyrule, which I think would be an extremely cool game mechanic. And instead of the depths. Another core mechanic that I think would be really cool for that game, the third installment, would be an ability to rebuild Hyrule. Because if you see Breath of the Wild, it's kind of like in this forgotten state, Hyrule is. And then in the second game at the beginning, you hear about them rebuilding Hyrule, but then it's kind of put on pause because of everything that's going on. But you're given the mechanic to learn how to build homes. So I think it would be really fun of a type of a game thing would be to be able to rebuild and expand Hyrule with buildings and shops and stores and all that type of stuff. I think that would be so much fun. I mean, you saw it with Breath of the Wild and Terrytown. So it would just be a fun game mechanic, I personally believe, because Terrytown was one of my favorite parts of Breath of the Wild, and even Tears of the Kingdom was one of my favorite parts. So I would really love to see the ability to rebuild the city of Hyrule, as well as maybe even going out and maybe having like little mini missions where you're able to do that in all the other villages and cities. So as you probably can see, I love this game. Now, I will say a few things in the negative. I don't want it to be all positive. I spent about 2 months playing this game, and definitely near the last 2 or 3 weeks, it felt very stale, boring, and repetitive until I was getting to the last bit of the game story, which was really good and definitely built up my excitement. But as a long-term game, it definitely does get repetitive. And I'm someone who can typically stand repetition for a good bit before I get really bored of it. So for normal folks, I would say it probably gets very repetitious unless you just play the story straight through. I liked collecting and doing all this other stuff. So I would say that the repetition, but then again, the Breath of the Wild did the same thing. I feel like and there was far less to do in Breath of the Wild, so it'd probably be even more repetitive in Breath of the Wild. But I mean, if Breath of the Wild was like a 9.5, this would be like a 9.8. Like it would be close, slightly better, but it was close, you know? I would have to lower my ranking from Breath of the Wild to like a 9, and this would be like a 9.5, but I honestly can't find too much to fault at this game. The characters are great. The story's really good. I love the twist with Zelda. And again, I would love to see, if they did make a sequel to this game, to see a relationship between Link and Zelda really expand in a positive way and evolve that. So yeah, tell me your thoughts down below and your opinion of Tears of the Kingdom. I'd love to hear it. I don't say it much, but please do like the video. It really does help out a lot. And subscribe as well. That also helps out a lot. We're closing in on 300 subscribers, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I have like less than 20 videos and I have nearly 300 subscribers. It means the world to me. Every single one of you who watch this and listen to what I have to say, some weirdo on the internet who has no life whatsoever, just talking about things that I like, and for some reason y'all like that. So it means so much to me that you do, and thank you so much, and it means the world, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.